"Excuse me, but this seat is reserved for someone more qualified," James Reed sneered, his voice dripping with condescension as he eyed Elena Royce's crisp linen shirt. She stood in the upscale law firm's lobby, clutching her meticulously prepared resume, heart racing with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Little did he know, this moment of humiliation was just the beginning of a powerful transformation that would not only change her life but also challenge the very foundations of privilege within the legal world. What happens when a woman wronged by discrimination rises to become a judge? This is a story of resilience, redemption, and the surprising ways justice can unfold. Elena Royce's journey began in a small apartment in a bustling neighborhood, where the sounds of bustling streets and the chatter of neighbors filled the air. The daughter of immigrant parents, Elena grew up watching her mother work long hours at a local diner. Maria Royce, a hardworking waitress, instilled in her daughter the values of perseverance and integrity. "Education is your ticket out of here," she often said, her tired hands gripping a dish towel. Elena took those words to heart. She excelled in school, driven by dreams of becoming a lawyer who could advocate for those without a voice. However, the path was fraught with challenges. Scholarships were hard to come by, and the pressure of student loans loomed over her as she pursued her degree. Despite these obstacles, Elena graduated at the top of her class, earning a place at a prestigious law school. Meanwhile, James Reed had been groomed for success from the start. Born into a family of prominent lawyers, he attended elite private schools and Ivy League universities, his life a series of carefully curated advantages. Reed exuded confidence, but it was often tinged with entitlement, leading him to overlook the struggles of those from less privileged backgrounds. When he became a partner at Harrington and Reed, a top law firm, he felt invincible, an impression that would soon be challenged. Their paths crossed during a networking event at a legal conference. Reed, already a rising star, spoke dismissively about the importance of diversity in the legal profession. "Real talent speaks for itself," he asserted, not realizing how his words perpetuated a culture that sidelined voices like Elena's. Elena, having overheard his remarks, felt a surge of indignation. "What about the value of diverse perspectives?" she challenged, her voice steady. Reed dismissed her, shrugging off her concerns as mere idealism. It was a moment that showcased their differences. Elena passionately believed in the power of justice for all, while Reed remained entrenched in his privilege. When Elena applied for an associate position at Harrington and Reed after law school, she felt hopeful. She poured her heart into her application, emphasizing her commitment to social justice and her dedication to helping those in need. But when she entered the firm's office for her interview, the environment felt different. The day of her interview was bright and sunny, yet Elena felt the weight of her nerves as she approached the towering glass building of Harrington and Reed. She had arrived early, rehearsing her answers in her mind, determined to make a lasting impression. As she entered the lobby, she felt out of place amidst the polished suits and designer bags. The receptionist barely glanced at her, and she determinedly walked to the conference room where her interview would take place. The panel consisted of James Reed, flanked by two other partners who barely concealed their skepticism as they reviewed her resume. "Let's get started, shall we?" Reed said, leaning back in his chair with an air of authority. "Tell us about your experiences." Elena spoke passionately, recounting her time volunteering at legal aid clinics, advocating for underprivileged clients, and her commitment to justice. But as she spoke, she could see the panel's interest waning, their expressions shifting from curiosity to condescension. "Interesting background," Reed said dismissively, "but our clients expect a certain pedigree." His words cut deep, but Elena held her composure, determined to prove her worth. The interview took a turn when Reed leaned forward, fixing her with a piercing gaze. "You do realize this is a prestigious firm, don't you? You'll be representing high-profile clients, not working on pro bono cases." In that moment, Elena felt a flashback to the summer of 2010, years before she had set foot in Harrington and Reed. She remembered the day she had saved James Reed's life. While volunteering at a local community event, she had noticed Reed struggling to breathe after eating a meal that had been prepared with a food allergy he hadn't disclosed. Elena had rushed to his side, performing the Heimlich maneuver and ensuring he received immediate medical attention. It was a moment that had forged a connection between them, yet it now felt like a distant memory overshadowed by his dismissive attitude. "I've saved lives before, Mr. Reed," Elena said, her voice steady. "And I believe every life has value, regardless of background." Reed's expression shifted slightly, but he quickly masked it. "That's noble, but we're in the business of results. We need candidates who can fit into our culture." The rejection came swiftly, delivered in a polished letter that felt like a punch to the gut. "While we were impressed with your qualifications, we have decided to pursue candidates who better align with our firm's needs." The sting of that rejection haunted Elena, but rather than succumbing to despair, it ignited a fire within her. She vowed to prove not only her worth but also the value of diverse perspectives in the legal profession. She would not allow Reed's cold dismissal to define her future. Months passed, and Elena immersed herself in work at a non-profit law firm dedicated to providing legal representation for marginalized communities. She poured her heart into every case, driven by the desire to ensure that justice was accessible to all, regardless of their background. Each victory was hard-fought, and each setback only fueled her determination. Meanwhile, James Reed continued to climb the corporate ladder at Harrington and Reed, surrounded by the same elite colleagues who had dismissed Elena during her interview. He thrived in the competitive environment, earning accolades for his ruthless approach to business. Yet beneath the surface, he felt a growing emptiness, a nagging sense that something was missing from his life. One fateful day, Reed's world was turned upside down when a scandal broke involving one of the firm's high-profile clients. An investigation revealed that the client had engaged in fraudulent activities, and the fallout threatened to bring down the entire firm. The partners scrambled to protect their reputations, and Reed found himself caught in the crossfire. As the firm faced increasing scrutiny, Reed's confidence wavered. He had always prided himself on his ability to navigate challenges, but this situation felt different. The fallout extended beyond the firm's finances. It threatened to unravel the very fabric of their culture, exposing the morally questionable practices that had long been hidden beneath the surface. Meanwhile, Elena learned about the scandal through her connections in the legal community. There was a sense of vindication mixed with concern. She had once aspired to work at Harrington and Reed, and now the firm was on the verge of collapse. When the news broke that the firm would be facing congressional hearings, Elena felt compelled to act. She reached out to former colleagues who had worked at Harrington and Reed, gathering information about the practices that had led to the scandal. Her commitment to justice compelled her to speak out and hold those in power accountable. One evening, she attended a gathering of legal professionals discussing the implications of the scandal. As she mingled with familiar faces, she spotted a few former classmates from law school, including a few who had been part of the panel that interviewed her. "Hey, Elena, how's the nonprofit world treating you?" one of them asked, a hint of condescension in her tone. "It's rewarding," Elena replied, her voice steady. "I'm focused on making a difference for those who need it most." "Wouldn't it be easier to work at a big firm?" another chimed in. "You could make a lot more money." Elena smiled politely. "I believe in the mission of my work. That's what matters to me." The conversation shifted to the scandal, and Elena listened intently as colleagues speculated about the fallout. "I hear they're looking to distance themselves from any involvement," one said, glancing around. "They'll do whatever it takes to protect their reputation." Elena felt a surge of frustration. The firm's culture had prioritized profit over ethics, and now they were scrambling to salvage their image. She decided it was time to take action. She would gather evidence and share her insights about the systemic issues within the firm. As the hearing date approached, Elena prepared to testify, knowing that her voice could make a difference. She had faced her own challenges, and now she was determined to stand up for the principles she believed in, no matter the consequences. The congressional hearing took place in a packed auditorium, with reporters and legal professionals filling the seats. As Elena entered the room, she felt a mix of anxiety and determination. This was her chance to speak up, to bring attention to the systemic problems that had allowed the scandal to fester. The atmosphere buzzed with tension as she took her place at the witness stand. Before her sat a panel of lawmakers, their expressions serious as they prepared to question her. Among them was Senator John Thompson, a powerful figure known for his commitment to justice and accountability. "Ms. Royce," Senator Thompson began, his voice firm, "can you please summarize your relationship with Harrington and Reed and any relevant experiences that led to your decision to testify today?" Elena took a deep breath and began recounting her journey. "I applied for a position at Harrington and Reed several years ago, but I was rejected based on my background. I later learned that the firm was involved in practices that prioritized profit over ethics, which ultimately led to the current scandal." As she spoke, she could see the lawmakers leaning in, their interest piqued. "I believe that the culture at Harrington and Reed fostered an environment where unethical behavior was tolerated and even encouraged. This is not just about one firm. It's about a systemic issue in our legal profession that needs to be addressed." The audience watched intently, and Elena felt a sense of empowerment as she shared her truth. She spoke not just for herself but for all those who had been marginalized or silenced by a system that prioritized prestige over integrity. After her testimony, media outlets reported on her words, framing her as a whistleblower and a champion for justice. The coverage brought renewed scrutiny to Harrington and Reed, prompting further investigations into their practices. The scandal took on a life of its own, and suddenly, the firm was no longer viewed as untouchable. As the hearing concluded, Elena stepped down from the witness stand, feeling a weight lifted from her shoulders. She had faced her fears and spoken out against injustice, but she couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty about what would come next. In the days following her testimony, the media coverage intensified. Major news outlets featured her story, highlighting her courage and resolve. Social media erupted with support, as people began sharing her journey and advocating for accountability within the legal profession. Meanwhile, James Reed watched the fallout from his office, his expression shifting from disbelief to anger. He had once dismissed Elena as a nobody, but now she was a rising star in the legal community, a voice for those who had been overlooked. It became clear to Reed that this wasn't just a story about a scandal. It was a reckoning for the entire legal establishment. The culture he had once embraced was under fire, and he found himself questioning the values he had held for so long. As the pressure mounted, Reed felt compelled to reach out to Elena. He wanted to discuss the changes that would be necessary for the firm to recover from the damage caused by the scandal. In an unexpected move, he called her office and left a message, requesting a meeting. When Elena received the message, she felt a mix of apprehension and curiosity. Could Reed genuinely want to engage in a conversation about change? Or was this merely a desperate attempt to salvage his reputation? After some deliberation, she agreed to meet with him, recognizing that the conversation could be an opportunity to address the systemic issues within the legal profession. The meeting with James Reed took place in a small conference room at Harrington and Reed, a space that still bore the marks of the scandals that had rocked the firm. The air was thick with tension as Elena entered, her heart racing with a mix of apprehension and determination. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," Reed said, his tone more subdued than she remembered. "I know our last interaction wasn't exactly pleasant." Elena nodded, crossing her arms. "I appreciate you reaching out, but I want to be clear. This isn't about personal feelings. It's about accountability and change." Reed looked down, clearly grappling with the weight of their shared history. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened, and I realize I was wrong, about you and about the culture we fostered at this firm. It's time for a change." Elena studied him, searching for sincerity in his expression. "What do you propose?" Reed outlined his vision for reforming the firm's culture, emphasizing the need for transparency, accountability, and inclusivity. He proposed creating a diversity task force to ensure that hiring practices were fair and equitable, and he expressed a commitment to making pro bono work a priority. "I want to rebuild this firm into one that reflects the values we should have been upholding all along," Reed said earnestly. "And I believe you could help lead that effort." Elena felt a mix of skepticism and hope. The path to real change was often fraught with resistance, but here was an opportunity to influence the very institution that had once dismissed her. "If we're going to do this, it has to be genuine," she replied. "No more tokenism. We need to address the systemic issues that have allowed discrimination to flourish." The conversation continued, with both individuals laying bare their vulnerabilities and aspirations for the future. Reed shared his own experiences with privilege and the ways it had blinded him to the realities faced by those less fortunate. Elena, in turn, recounted the challenges she had faced on her journey and the importance of fighting for justice. By the end of the meeting, they reached a tentative agreement to collaborate on reforming the firm's policies. It would be a long and challenging process, but both felt a renewed sense of purpose as they explored the possibility of transforming Harrington and Reed into a model for ethical legal practice. In the weeks that followed, the media continued to cover the story of Harrington and Reed's scandal, but the tone shifted as Elena and Reed began implementing changes. The press began to highlight their efforts to address discrimination and foster inclusivity. As the firm rolled out its new diversity initiative, it received attention from industry leaders and advocates alike. Elena became a prominent figure in the conversation about ethics in law, advocating for accountability and justice. Her message resonated far beyond the walls of Harrington and Reed, inspiring others to challenge the status quo. Meanwhile, the partnership between Elena and Reed began to change perceptions within the firm. Employees who had once felt marginalized began to see new opportunities for advancement. The culture started to shift as conversations about diversity and inclusion became part of the everyday dialogue. Years later, as Elena stood at the podium of a national legal conference, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The experience of overcoming adversity, confronting discrimination, and advocating for change had shaped her into a leader in the legal community. Today, we gather not just to celebrate achievements in law, but to reaffirm our commitment to justice and equity. She began, her voice steady and passionate. "My journey has taught me that true progress comes from addressing our flaws and embracing the diversity that makes our profession stronger." The audience listened intently, captivated by her story and the lessons she had learned along the way. She spoke about the importance of standing up for what is right, even in the face of adversity, and the need for systemic change within the legal profession. As she concluded her address, she looked out at the sea of faces, many of whom shared similar struggles. "We all have the power to create change in our communities. It starts with recognizing our own biases and committing to a path of continuous growth." The applause that followed was thunderous, a testament to the impact of her words. Elena knew that her journey was far from over. There were still battles to fight and injustices to address. But as she left the stage, she felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that she was part of a larger movement pushing for a more equitable future. The legacy of her story would continue to inspire future generations of lawyers, reminding them that integrity and compassion could transform lives and the legal system. And so, the fight for justice continued, not just for herself but for every individual who had ever faced discrimination or felt voiceless in the pursuit of their dreams. The story of Elena Royce serves as a powerful reminder that our backgrounds do not define our worth or potential. Overcoming adversity requires not only resilience but also a commitment to standing up for what is right, even in the face of rejection and discrimination. Elena's journey illustrates how one person's struggle can lead to meaningful change within an institution, inspiring others to challenge the status quo and advocate for justice. Her experiences remind us that integrity and compassion are essential in building a more equitable society, where everyone has access to opportunity and support. Moreover, this narrative emphasizes the importance of human connection. When we choose to see beyond appearances and recognize the shared humanity in each other, we foster a culture of empathy and understanding. It is through these connections that we can create lasting change, uplift one another, and ensure that no one is left behind. Ultimately, Elena's story encourages us all to reflect on our own biases, advocate for those who may face injustice, and work together to build a future where diversity is celebrated and every voice is heard. If Elena's inspiring journey resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever faced a similar situation where your background or appearance influenced how others treated you? How did you overcome it? Your experiences matter, and sharing them can inspire others who may be facing their own challenges. For more stories of resilience, justice, and the power of human connection, consider subscribing to this channel. Each week, we explore narratives that highlight the importance of empathy and the impact of standing up for what is right. If you found value in Elena's story, please share this video with friends and family who might benefit from a reminder of the importance of integrity and compassion in our lives. Together, we can create a community that supports one another and advocates for change. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Elena's remarkable transformation. Remember, every act of kindness and courage can make a difference. Let's continue to uplift each other and strive for a better world for all.